In his landmark study on self-efficacy and cognitive development, Albert Bandura affirms that the family plays a key role in their children's success in school. Self-efficacious parents regard education as a shared responsibility. The higher their sense of efficacy to instruct their children, the more they guide their children's learning and participate actively in the life of the school.
I think it comes a lot from parents.
Mainly my parents, prove to them what I can do. And I always want to go to college because they always paved the way for me to do that. And for me to do what I need to do to go that path.
I give parents a lot of credit whether a kid does well or is totally messed up. And I say that politely, messed up. Your family life is really, you can't function without a good family life. If something's going on outside, then you can't come to school and pretend everything's normal.
But the two things that I think are the most important are the relationships that you can build with students.
Forming relationships with students, I think, is a big deal. They won't learn from you. They won't remember anything unless you have a good relationship.
Unless a kid feels safe in your class, they're not going to be able to do anything.
Find kind of a hook.
Getting them talking in class so that you can hear what's important to them. And if you find something that sparks their curiosity, don't kind of like push that aside. Give them a chance to explore it.
Use that hook to lead kids towards state requirements, but not just see it that way, really see it as a way to make themselves better people. The second thing is flexibility. Once you're in high school English, you have a lot of flexibility. Here are 5 books that you can choose from. I really don't care which one you pick. And if you pick the skinniest one, that might be the hardest one, you still have choice.
My philosophy is every kid can succeed. I might have to work a lot harder, but they're going to succeed one way or another.
Problem solving. I get a lot of kids that will just glaze over and give up when I see them giving up. I call them out gently, but call them out on it. Like, I gave you this problem because I knew you could do it. If you do get that glazed over look, you got to be flexible too. But keep it rolling, keep it interesting to them and relevant to them.
The kid, you have to make sure that kids know that you're not only there for them, but you're going to help them succeed. I think back and I really have to look at the bad teachers. You know, I learned in spite of them.
There was one teacher specifically. She was really hurtful to me, and I remember that. It's really shaped how I build relationships with his kids. And so I try to make a point to be more sensitive to them.
Palmer writes, "If we stopped lobbing pedagogical points at each other and spoke about who we are as teachers, a remarkable thing might happen. Identity and integrity might grow within us and among us, instead of hardening as they do when we defend our fixed positions from the foxholes of the pedagogy wars. Taking the conversation of colleagues into the deep places where we might grow in self-knowledge for the sake of our professional practice will not be an easy or popular task. But it is a task that leaders of every educational institution must take up if they wish to strengthen their institution's capacity to pursue the educational mission."
So now there's like 8 people in my department, and we get along so well, and we all have like a common goal, and we really collaborate a lot, which is awesome. So, and that's the kind of environment that I wanted to be in.
And another factor that I don't think teachers do is they don't talk to other teachers, because that's a really important thing, because I wasn't alone.
Kristen Isaacson and Patricia Jarvis show how, as adolescents progress towards adulthood, their reliance on family continues to decrease, and the influence of peers becomes increasingly important.
I don't know if kids motivate each other. I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking like, are they really motivated by anybody else? Probably not. They're probably more discouraged. I'm never going to get the A type thing. So I'm not really sure. That's a hard one. So it's really hard.
Assess them, get them, I don't know. Have them assess themselves, I guess, regularly. Provide them with ways to self-assess.
I feel very differentiated between most of the people at our school. I haven't really been able to find that motivation through my peers because they don't really see things the way I see them. They see things the way they see them, but they don't really, connect that. And so I find it hard, to get motivation from my peers.
In the classroom, we're anticipating that all students are going to be at the same place at the same time, and that's just really not reality in their own brains.
It's more of a competition.
Competition that you've had forever with the same group of kids because you've gone to school with them for a while.
Want to be the best, and they're going to work as hard as it takes to be the best. Marjana would call it friendly competition. the competing to be number one.
There's been a couple people like going through high school with like the same class and having the same people in like the same honors and AP classes. You always ask each other for a test, like what do you get, or like what do you think you're gonna get. Everyone's pushing themselves to be better than like the next person.
But I think those kids that are the bright kids are definitely motivational for each other.
You bet.
You know,
Iron sharpens
Yeah.
iron.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of cooperative groups and collaborative groups, and at one point I was changing so that they had to work with everybody and get to know everybody. And then I was thinking, if you find a group that kids work well with, maybe you should just let them work. I don't know, let them work in their little group. I mean, switch it up a little bit, but if you find kids that are really meshing well together, why ruin it?
Where they kind of like knew like what I could do and saw like sometimes like like my best.
And like if we're not modeling the language that we want the students to use, then they're not going to pick it up. Not expecting them to become encouragers and motivators of each other until we've built the relationship, we've discovered who they are, then putting them together with people that might be able to have like dynamics.
Isaacson and Jarvis write, emotional autonomy from parents increased with age in a sample of junior high students, but that this was negatively correlated with adolescents demonstrating autonomy when they were faced with peer pressure. That is, those students who were the most emotionally autonomous from parents succumbed to peer pressure the most.
One of the common core practices is to have them, construct arguments and critique others, and that you have to practice that critiquing, and you have to teach them how to critique others nicely, especially in ninth grade, because they're little boogers in ninth grade, and you have to call them out. You're being a little right now. You need to.
A lot of times, the kids that are motivated get made fun of.
That's where the bullying starts to take place.
Why do you take school so seriously? What, you really like that book, Grapes of Wrath? These constant jabs. And it's hard for motivated students to be able to stand up for themselves. It's just easier for them to be quiet about it. So I think that's going to be a struggle for the rest of our lives as teachers.
Parker Palmer writes, I'm painfully aware of the times in my own teaching when I lose touch with my inner teacher and therefore with my own authority. In those times I try to gain power by barricading myself behind the podium and my status while wielding the threat of grades. But when my teaching is authorized by the teacher within me, I need neither weapons nor armor to teach.
The sad part about it is that most kids are motivated by grades, and they don't care to learn. They just want that A, or they want the D- to pass, which is unfortunate. They don't learn as much when they're motivated by grades. Do you think it would be more motivating if we did take away grades? Like if that were the general thing, take away grades, and then that would be, you'd have to be intrinsically motivated.
We set goals for kids. We have expectations, we have standards, we have state testing, we have map testing. It means nothing to them. It's making sure that they set goals. If kids don't see goals related to what they're doing, they don't care about it. So I think that testing, we have to come up with a way to make sure that kids understand why. And I typically don't just say state testing, it's making sure that it has world application. I just feel like if kids knew what was out there, that they might be motivated more to go and do it.
Yeah, I try to give them relevant problems. You won't get everybody, but you can get a good majority with a bunch of problems. But
if it's meaningful, then they're going to do well.
Take like fractions and make you understand little parts of things, and then continue to build up on it until you can understand the whole. But for me, I have to understand their relation with the whole before I can understand how they work by themselves. It kind of makes it whole instead of just looking at it from separate pieces. And that really helps me to create a better understanding. And when I understand things that way, making it so I can apply all these things to to myself and to everything around me really kind of creates the motivation.
There was a specific group of students that were highly motivated by whatever was being banned. Anything that was turned down, students were running to the library to get. And I was putting really hard books on these lists, like 1984 and Brave New World, Frankenstein, Jack London, Grapes of Wrath. Grapes of Wrath, who actually chooses to read Grapes of Wrath? They suddenly were reading it. And so I started putting books on the list just for fun. 10 books every month to the committee. and the committee really hated me.
What we teach will never take unless it connects with the inward, living core of our students' lives, with our students' inward teachers. To educate is to guide students on an inner journey toward more truthful ways of seeing and being in the world.
Just an internal drive, a personality thing.
Most kids, it comes from within.
I didn't have any motivation. I just wanted to sit around all day. I didn't really want to do anything. I just kind of created that and found it for myself. And I've seen that, I have control over that. I can, influence myself just as I can influence other people.
At the end of my freshman year, where I decided my classes for the next year, I decided to take my first AP class because I knew I was going to go to college for sure. Might as well take classes that would prepare me and give me credit, save me money.
An object in motion stays in motion. An object in rest stays in rest. You have to get up and do something in order for it to, to start to be done.
Self-actualization needs mark the summit of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of motives and needs. Seifert and Sutton write, "Being needs are desires to become fulfilled as a person, or to be the best person that you can possibly be. They include cognitive needs, aesthetic needs, and, most importantly, self-actualization needs. Self-actualizing individuals," Maslow argued, "value deep personal relationships with others, but also value solitude. They have a sense of humor, but do not use it against others. They accept themselves as well as others. They are spontaneous, humble, creative, and ethical. Most teachers would argue that students, young though they are, can display positive qualities similar to the ones described in Maslow's self-actualizing person. Self-actualization is an appropriate way to think about these moments, the times when students are at their best.
It's not like I want to be motivated to go up and go on a hike. I think, wow, man, I see these mountains up there, and I see this bliss up on the very tops, and I want to go and share that energy. So it just brings me joy.
With the inward, living core of our students' lives, with our students' inward teachers. I'm painfully aware of the times
self-actualization
is touch with my inner
teacher,
teacher, and therefore with my own authority. In those times, I try to gain power
Seifert
by
and
barricading
Sutton,
myself behind
being
the
needs or
staff,
desires to
marking
become
the thread of
fulfilled
educate
as a person.
Love.